Hi, my name's Drew, and I'm going to be walking through the outdoor RV with you today. We're going to start right up front here. We're going to work our way around the unit from component to component, hop on the inside, do much of the same in there. Right up front here, we have your electric tongue jack, easy up or down operation. On the head of that jack, you do have a light there, gives you a point of reference if you're backing up to it in the dark. It's a nice feature. Underneath this cap here, which pulls double duty as a leveler as well, you will find a manual drive. On the inside of the unit, you're going to find a crank handle that corresponds with that drive. Will allow you to operate the jack up or down in any sort of power loss situation that you may have. Directly behind that, we have two 40-pound propane tanks. Much bigger capacity than you generally will see on a camper, which is a nice feature. Still, just with same as with any other propane tank, open and close valve here on the top. In between the two, you do have a selector switch regulator. Whichever tank you are wishing to draw off of, you can just force that indicator towards that tank. As long as that valve up top is open, you're going to draw from that tank. If you want to draw from both tanks equally, just go ahead and orientate that up towards the middle. Make sure both valves are on. You will drain through both tanks equally. To remove these tanks, unscrew your oversized wing nut here, rotate your T-bar. That will allow you, of course, once you disconnect the pigtail here and the regulator, to go ahead and manipulate that off, take it to get refilled as necessary. Behind that, we have two Group 24 batteries. Biggest thing with those is going to be just good general battery maintenance. 2 or 3 times a year, you're going to pull these vent panels up on each battery. You'll find a clear marked water level inside. We are just going to maintain that water level with distilled water as necessary. Coming around here to the generator compartment here, you will have a service manual separate for the generator here. Just make sure that you maintain those service intervals that Onan is recommending. A few things, of course, you do have a switch here. If you want to go ahead and turn that on while you're outside, you'll probably find that most time you'll use the auxiliary switch on the inside to start this. One thing to be aware of is here on the side you do have a breaker. That is your outputting power breaker. So if you fire up the generator and it is running just fine but not outputting power, nothing's working, more than likely that breaker there is going to be your culprit. Whether you are operating this from the inside switch or the switch right here on the generator, you will hold it into the stop position there. What we're doing is priming that generator. Once that light illuminates, we are primed. From there, we'll go ahead, start the generator up as necessary. You'll find that there is an automatic transfer relay with this system, so there is no lag in between switching from shore power to generator power. So everything should just start up as normal. Again, consult the owner's manual here for the generator specifically to find those service intervals and any further maintenance in that. While we're here at the slide out, it's a good time to not only talk about slide out maintenance, but overall unit maintenance as well. Every 90 days, you're going to do a 360-degree inspection of seals, maintaining seals as necessary. Anything you find here on the body where two pieces come together is going to be a seal that needs maintained. Most of what you're going to find here on the body is going to be a 100% silicone product, and as long as it's labeled as such, it is going to be acceptable to use on the body. On top of the roof, you're going to use a RV grade lap sealant, which you will specifically have to source from an RV dealer or retailer. What you're looking for with any of these seals is going to be degradation, cracks, any intrusion points where you think water could get in. It is necessary to maintain that. Specifically talking about slide out maintenance, what we are looking for other than conditioning these rubber seals, which you would use an RV grade seal conditioner here, spray these down once every 90 days, inside and out, and you'll be good. Here on these tracks, you have one of these tracks here on each side, and you do have some gearing. What we're going to be looking for is to put some lithium grease on each one of those tracks once every 90 days, and then run the slide in and out a few times to distribute that lubricant. And other than that, do that every 90 days and all of these components should stay in great shape. So here on the other side of the slide out, it's a good time to talk about tire pressure and lug nuts. These tires are rated for an 80 psi tire pressure. We do want to maintain that. You'll find that pressure stamped on the sidewall of the tire as well as the data tag for the tires and axles. Lug nuts have also been torqued to 100 foot-pounds here in our shop. Manufacturer recommends a retorque procedure on every single unit. So that's the first 15, 25, 50, and 100 miles of initial travel. They want you to go ahead and retorque those lug nuts down to 100 foot-pounds. From there on after, at the beginning of each trip, you're going to want to maintain that 100 foot-pounds of torque. Directly behind the tires, you will see this white handle valve. That is a standard Blade X valve, and that is how you will dump your wastewater. So this one specifically that we're looking at is going to be the freshwater drain. Is a 6-inch pull towards you. So just pull it towards you. That's going to evacuate the fresh water from the underside of the camper. A little further down, we have your bayonet style fitting here. That is a standard dump valve. Your sewage hose is going to connect the very same way this cap comes off. It will be, you'll line up your keyhole there in the halfway position, give it a quarter turn. That's going to lock it on. Again, whether that be the cap or the sewage hose, they will connect the very same way. Up here, hiding on the underneath the J-wrap there, you do have your dump valves. This one here is going to be black for black water. Black water is going to be anything that comes from the toilet, solid body waste. Gray is going to be anything that comes from the sink or the shower. These two valves should never be opened at the same time, and this black water valve specifically should be closed anytime the camper is being in use. You'll use the monitor panel on the inside and only dump as necessary. Other than that, a little further down, you're going to find a secondary gray water handle here. And that's just because of the size of the unit. They went ahead and split that gray water system into 2 tanks to allow you more use. Light here, which is a nice location, especially if you are hooking up any of these septic ports or any of the septic system in the dark. Switches right there on the underside of the light for easy access. Door here, large storage compartment underneath the bunk on the inside. Is nice to be able to lift that bunk up if you do have any tall storage that you need to accommodate under here. And it is nice that they do give you the gas struts there to make that easier to do so. Here on the rear, you're going to not only find your tube bumper, which is going to be great for any sewage hose storage. You'll also find your rooftop access ladder here. Is a full walk-on roof, and we discussed any maintenance earlier. Cable satellite inlets here. These are just pass-through cable connections to the designated TV areas of the camper. one being designed for a aftermarket satellite package and the other being designed for a park cable service. So again, they are just standard cable fittings and are designed to be a pass-through cable connection to the TV area of the camper. 30 amp 110 volt power supply here, only plugs into the camper one way. If you go ahead and take a look at this plug, it only makes sense that it will be accommodated one way. We'll plug straight in. 1/8 inch turn to the right there, locks it in. Then we do have a secondary collar here to screw down and lock it in further. Right next to that, we'll skip over to this one. This one's going to be your city water connection. That's what you're going to be using anytime you are staying in an RV park or do have access to full-time running water. Water pressure is very important when you are dealing with city water. We'll want to keep that water pressure anywhere in between 40 and 75 psi using a water pressure regulator. We do include a water pressure regulator for you today. Biggest thing to remember is that you will always need to use a water pressure regulator to keep that city water pressure regulated. Next to that, right here in the middle, we have your black tank flush. That corresponds with a jet inside the black water tank to specifically help blast off compounded toilet waste, body waste, things like that. Of course, hook on any old garden hose into that fitting. Biggest thing to remember with that is there is no check valve in that tank. There is nothing to keep said wastewater into the tank once it is full. When using this, give it 5 minutes with water rushing in before coming here to the other side and releasing the black water valve on this side. It is very important to either time yourself or monitor it with the monitor panel on the inside to make sure you do not overflow that tank. Path of least resistance is going to be the rooftop septic vents, and I promise you that is not a problem that you want to have. Here on the underside, we have a quick disconnect hose. Again, on the inside of the unit, you're going to find a coiled hose sprayer, nice little blue hose. That is a quick disconnect coupler there, so you slide that locking collar back, insert the male end fully, and it will automatically pressurize from either the onboard water pump or the city water connection here. Coming into this compartment here, something that Outdoor RV does is they give you a secondary water pump specifically to be used in conjunction with your spray port here. Reason being is this unit in particular is set up for carrying motorcycles, outdoor equipment with you, and the idea being that if you are in the middle of nowhere, you may want a high pressure water pump to clean any equipment or anything, I guess, at your campsite. Secondary switch right there for that water pump that will turn that on separate from the rest of the system. And the only thing that this water pump does feed is your spray port here. Secondary receiver down here, excellent for a cargo rack, bike rack, whatever you want to put on there. As the sticker says here, 250-pound max capacity there on that receiver. Full-size spare on the backside of the unit here is just going to run a standard Steely wheel, but tire size and pressure should be the same as the other tires on the unit. Other than that, here on the backside, not too terribly much to speak of, so nothing we really need to cover there. Steps are going to be folded up and in, and then they give you a nice pull handle here for the way out and down. Awning, lights and switches, outside speakers, things like that we're going to cover there on the inside so we can see those switches and how they operate there on the inside. So here we have your refrigerator. All your controls are going to be on the front side of the unit. Not too terribly much you need to access back here. We don't consider this a customer serviceable unit. Number one thing you can do to protect your refrigerator is going to be keeping any mud daubers, flying insects from nesting in the compartment. To do so, we'll want to make sure we screen off these vents here. This vent cover should be in place most of the life of the refrigerator. Give it a visual inspection a couple times a year, make sure nothing's gotten in, has nested in there, make sure you don't have any frayed wires, everything looks to be acceptable. To install this vent cover here, the tabs go in first. Once those are seated, that will allow you to insert the square pegs there. Go ahead and give each one a quarter turn there. That goes ahead and locks it on for travel. Dropping down here to the furnace, kind of a very similar practice with that. From a maintenance standpoint, there is, again, not too terribly much you can do. This is your exhaust for the furnace. So number one, make sure, again, mud daubers and flying insects are not nesting in there. Easiest way to do that is going to be screen off these orifices. Next to that, of course, make sure you're not restricting the flow of the appliance in any way. And just be aware of what you kind of lean up against here. It does blow very hot air when it is on, will melt anything that you do put up to it. So keep that in mind. Over to this port here. This is going to be your potable water port. Anytime you're doing any off-grid camping, before you get there, hopefully you have access to some running water. You can go ahead and fill that onboard water tank up. Now this is not naturally pressurized in the system, so you do need to use that onboard water pump. And this is, of course, going to be a separate water pump from what we saw there on the back side. This is going to, of course, feed water to all of the different fixtures there on the inside when you are doing some off-grid camping. So stick a garden hose directly in there, fill it up till it overflows, cap it off. And then again, use the onboard water pump when you want to use that water that's going to draw it up to the tank and to the fixtures. Couple all-weather 110 volt outlets here. Nothing too crazy with that. Again, just a standard 15 amp outlet. Brings us to the water heater here. This is a 10-gallon water heater. Does have the same problems with nesting and things like that. So this is your cover, and we will, again, want to keep these louvers in this steel mesh. We want to cover that up further to keep any mud daubers, flying insects out. But again, we don't want to restrict the airflow to the unit. Other than that, maintenance with this unit is pretty significant. Manufacturer recommends a few things. Number one is going to be anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days, they want you to go ahead and drain this separate of the low point drains and freshwater system. What that's going to look like is, of course, you're going to give it ample time to cool down, a lot longer than you may think. 8 hours is a good rule of thumb. From there, it is very important that you depressurize it. Depressurizing it is as simple as cutting the flow of water to the unit itself, and then turning the hot side of the spigot on the inside, any one of the fixtures, allowing that excess pressure to go ahead and bleed off. Once that pressure has bled off, then you can go ahead and drain this. Draining it, you are going to use an 1 1/8" socket here on your drain plug. You'll probably need an extension as well to go ahead and back that drain plug out. Once that is, of course, once you back that plug out, the remainder water that is inside the unit is going to drain out from here. Now this drain plug pulls double duty. It's not only a drain plug, but it is also an anode rod. What an anode rod does is acts like a magnet for hard water deposits, calcification, things like that. They deposit and eat away at that anode rod as opposed to the inside of the tank itself. What you should expect is on the backside of this plug, you're going to find that anode rod starts out about 3/4 of an inch by 12 inch in length. and by the time it needs to be replaced, it's going to look very decrepit and be about the size of a pencil. Again, you should be well aware of the condition of your anode rod because you're going to be taking a look at it every time you're draining the water heater, and you should be draining the water heater anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days. Other than that, on the flip side of that conversation, manufacturer does recommend, since you are going to be starting your trip with the water heater empty, that you do prime it, in this case with 10 gallons of water before lighting it. Priming it is going to be done the very same way as you bleed the excess pressure on, except for you need the flow of water to the unit to be intact. And then again, you just turn that hot side of the spigot on. That flow is going to initially be very interrupted or very airy and spitty as it's feeding 10 gallons of water into the unit. Once that flow normalizes at the fixture, again on that hot side of the plumbing, that is a really good indicator that this is ready to be used, and you can go ahead and turn it on at that point. Other than that, again, very important that we do keep insects, mud daubers, flying insects from the unit. Again, kind of things we may have seen already. Foldable handle here, so it is going to be a lift up, and that will allow you to fold it in whichever travel position you prefer. The same steps as we saw there at the back door, which are going to be up and in. And then that leads us to the main compartment here. Of course, you have your crank handles for the unit. The manual operation for the main jack is up front, stored here. They give you some nice tension bands here to maybe store some gear. And then you have this nice slide out tray as well. You have a locking latch there. You lift that up, that will allow you to slide this tray out a good bit for any of your gear. On this front panel here, we have a battery disconnect switch here. That's going to isolate those batteries up front, make it as easy as a flip of a switch. You'll use that battery disconnect for periods of long-term storage. What that's going to do is take any nominal or phantom draws off of the system while in storage. From day to day, those are no big deal, but compounded over many months in storage, they are going to wear and tear on that battery. So again, it's as easy of a flip as a switch. Anytime you are in storage, go ahead and turn that into the off position. Light switch here is going to be on the underside of the battery compartment there, or designated battery area. And again, it's just going to light that space in the event you need to do any maintenance after dark. Also in this compartment, we're going to find the leveling switches here. There is only 2 switches per each side of the camper. So this one here on the left is going to be for the driver's side. The one here is going to be on the right side. Biggest thing with those is they are, again, electrically controlled. When you come down, make contact with the pavement and stop immediately. And initially I gave you the wrong information, so what you're seeing here is not left to right, it is front to back, and those are labeled. So the one there on the left is for the front jacks, the one on the right is for the rear jacks. And then you have a nice light in there to light that compartment for any of those, anything that needs controlled there. And then here we have a portable solar port. Again, this is just going to be a direct connection to the batteries there up front, designed for a portable solar panel if you were inclined to add one. Of course, we installed a secondary solar panel up top there on the roof. Shouldn't really need to use this, but if you choose to do so, it is there. So. And only other thing here we have on the outside is going to be your toy lock here. This is a cable, ratcheting cable lock, and is again designed to lock up any of your outdoor equipment, to keep anybody from walking off of with it. So just ratchet out there, gives you enough slack to be able to go ahead and loop that around anything that you are trying to keep secure here on the outside. Here we are on the inside, and just to make sure we don't miss anything, we're going to start here in the bedroom and work our way this way throughout. Here on the inside of the bedroom, you of course have a main light switch right inside the door that lights up these ceiling lights. Now your bedside light there above your head is controlled by the switch right there on the fixture. Of course, you have this tremendous amount of storage there above the bed, which is nice. Should have storage here on the underside of the bed as well, which is a nice efficient use of space. On each side of the bed, you're going to find 110 volt 15 amp outlets, and then USB outlets as well. So you do have access to those on both sides of the bed, which is nice. On the other side of the bed there, you do have a little safe there, store any, firearms or valuables in there as well. So nice to have the ability to keep things secure. Up top here, we're going to see your charge controller, solar charge controller. That corresponds with the 2 solar panels that we have up on the roof. What you're going to find here is this is more just a visual readout of battery voltage, how many amp hours your intake of via solar, things like that. So you're not going to get or have too terribly much control over the solar setup with that charge controller. It all kind of happens behind the scenes. People compare that charge controller to essentially the brains of that system. So it's going to intake energy as necessary. Once those batteries are topped off, it will then stop intaking energy, and it all kind of happens behind the scenes. We have your max air fan up top here. That is controlled with this remote here. So you have a on-off switch there. That is going to, of course, lift up that lid and then start with the previously saved settings that you have on here. You can control fan speed directly with this up or down here. And then in conjunction with controlling fan speed, you can control a thermostat there. It will maintain that speed and that temperature with that thermostat, kick on and off as needed. Here down in the bottom right hand corner, you can reverse the direction of that fan, whether you want to exhaust air or bring it in there from the outside. You can lower the lid if you want to still run that fan without venting to the outside. You can go ahead and circulate the air that we have inside the cabin here. And then, of course, your on-off switch there is in the top left-hand corner. And that lives right there on the wall in that little holder there. We also have a carbon monoxide detector up here in the room. It does have a test button, functions very much like a smoke alarm. However, this is wired into the 12-volt section of the camper, so there are no batteries to change, anything like that. On the wall there, we have a place to add a secondary TV. You have an antenna booster, 110-volt outlet, as well as a 12-volt outlet, depending on the TV you choose to mount there. Coming back into the kitchen area or main living area of the camper, we have a multitude of switches and things going on when we do walk right here inside the door. Starting with this guy up top, that's your freshwater tank heater. So that's specifically designed when you are camping in an environment that you run the potential of a freeze. That is going to keep that fresh water from freezing in the tank. So it's a very nice feature. Down below, we have your convenience center, courtesy panel. Goes by many different names, but they do generally all work very similar. This is going to give you a visual readout of where your tanks sit in level of full, as well as your battery. So here on the red indicator, that's going to be your battery indicator. That's L, F, G, and C, and that stands for low, fair, good, and charged. And you can test your battery by pushing that in. Now your battery is going to read full anytime you are plugged into shore power. To get a real readout of where your battery sits, you of course need to unplug from shore power and go ahead and push that button. And then of course you're going to read your tanks off of your top display here. So, and again, the more lights you see, the more full those tanks are. Water pump switch is here, and you know it's on when that little red light is on. Again, you're going to pressurize the potable water system with that water pump. You'll use that anytime you are off-grid, doing any off-grid type camping. Next up, we have your water heater switches. One is for the electric heating element, which is a 110 volt appliance. The one on the in the middle of that display is going to be for LP gas. You can run both sources at the same time. That is going to give you the highest recharge rate. You're looking at 17 gallons per hour, running both sources, somewhere about 15 gallons per hour on standalone propane gas, and 11 gallons per hour on that electric side of it. So you will use those as those resources present themselves, or the need for more hot water quickly presents itself. Light switches here. One's going to be for the awning lights there on the outside. This other one is going to be what they call a courtesy light. Just a switch you can hit as you come to the inside of the camper if it is dark to light your way. Next panel over is going to control your awning and slide out. This awning is not what we would consider a one-touch awning, so if you stop the switch, it stops the awning. You can choose how far out you run that awning. That is entirely in your control. Slide out room switch here. Bring the slide in or out. So there is no bearing on how far or how little you put that slide out. Of course, when it is in use, you do need to have it fully out before somebody is sitting on in the dinette or on these couches. Shouldn't have limited access to the bathroom, especially since there is a door back there. So there is really no need to use the unit without, or to run that slide out to have access to the bathroom. So, and then we have your auxiliary generator switch here. It does function the same as the switch we saw there on the outside. It is just at a separate location. Again, you hold that stop button until that light lights up. That goes ahead and primes the system. Then we come here to the start, and that will allow it to start up from there. And then of course you have your hour readout there as well. Jumping over here to the TV, nothing too crazy with that. Of course, this is going to be your remote for the TV. This is going to be your remote for the stereo system here. You do have a little ring here, a little pull chain that will allow you to unlock this TV, and you can go ahead and position this to anywhere you may be in the room. Here on the back side, this antenna booster plate here is going to control the antenna on the roof. What you have up there is going to be an omnidirectional digital antenna. What that means is that as long as this switch is on and you do a channel search, it's going to automatically search out your best option in terms of signal strength and bring in channels from there. If you're utilizing a part cable service or the aftermarket satellite package, they're on the outside of the camper. Keep in mind that this antenna booster would need to be in the off position to allow that cable signal to bleed through, since they do share some of the same line there. When you're going down the road, go ahead and make sure you got this locked back in its stowed position. And just give it a test there. Down here, we have your stereo system, CD, DVD, AM, FM radio, Bluetooth. All of these features can be utilized here. You do have separate zones for the unit. Zones 1 and 2 here. You will control the volume of each zone separately. Zone 1 is going to be for the inside. Zone 2 is going to be for the outside. You have your modes here. Holding this Bluetooth button there is going to put you into Bluetooth mode. Of course, follow the prompts on your phone to go ahead and link up with that. All other modes are going to be accessed through the button right beside there. Other than that, if there are any questions with this stereo system, it does have its own service manual. If you have any questions further, feel free to give us a call. Down low here on the floor, we have access to your water pump and your hot water heater, or your water heater. If you look far back into that compartment, you can see a couple valves on the back side of that water heater. That's going to be your water heater bypass. You would use that if you're doing a full winterization process to the unit. What that is going to entail is, of course, purging all the water from the system there on the outside, bypassing the water heater, and then refilling with an RV grade antifreeze from there on out. To do so, of course, when it comes to introducing that antifreeze into the system, you are going to use this hose here. So you're going to trace this hose back to the valve that's back behind there. You're going to turn that valve into the on position. When that valve is in the on position, it provides vacuum to this hose. So you stick this hose directly into your bottle of RV grade antifreeze once again. And you're again going to only do so once you have bypassed the water heater first. So trace this back to the valve, turn that valve on, stick this into your bottle of RV grade antifreeze. From there, you're going to use the water pump switch up top. Turn that water pump on, go from fixture to fixture, turning each fixture on, and make sure you're going to the hot side, to the cold side on each fixture. Once you see pink at the fixture itself, that is a very good indicator that you are fully winterized and you're good to go. And if we are looking back into this compartment as well, your bypass for your water heater is going to be right there. Don't know if you can see that. And that is the one off of the inlet to the water heater. And while we're down here as well, we have your fire extinguisher here for the unit. Good thing to test this every time you are using the unit. If you push that green tab down and it springs back, there is still life in the unit. If not, it is time to replace it. 9-volt smoke alarm here. It'll let you know when it needs to be changed. Just like at home, runs a 9-volt, standard 9-volt battery. Nothing too crazy there. Lighting here on the slide out, you have 2 switches. Of course, one here for the couch area, and then the other is for the dinette area. So, light switches there, very straightforward. You have multiple sleeping options here as well. Of course, one of them is going to be a standard pedestal style dinette bed. When doing that, you are going to wrestle this tabletop from the pedestals here. So just remove the tabletop from the pedestal, then remove the pedestal from the flange here. You can go ahead and lay these poles down here on the floor or store them anywhere you find necessary. And then that tabletop is going to sit right here on these little indentations. From there, you can take these back cushions, lay them right on the tabletop itself. and then you have a secondary seating, sleeping area here. Also, something you generally do not see in campers, you also have a pull-out bed option here, which is pretty cool. You go ahead and remove these cushions for the time being. And you lift from here. And you got to kind of be careful because the whole couch wants to come with you. You can go ahead and put these legs out at that time. And that lays out there. And then this back lays down there to fill that up. So, and then of course on the way back in, hold that up. Just like so. All the windows in the unit are going to be pretty much the same as well. You have those projector style shades there. And that's it. And kind of standard, almost residential style window with a lock there. So unlock and slide. So very straightforward. Here into the kitchen area, standard microwave. Operation is going to be just like you're used to at home. Light, fan, again, operation of these is going to be very much like it is at home. Stovetop here does have a sparker igniter. That is probably going to be different than what you're used to. You can go ahead and turn that to light on each burner and then actuate that igniter, and that will light those burners up. Oven is going to be, again, slightly different than what you're probably used to. So you will turn this to pilot, and you'll hold that into the on position, and then you are going to use a long stem barbecue lighter, and you will want to put your flame in between those two prongs if possible, while holding this in that pilot position. Manufacturer does install a couple 12-volt sockets here in the kitchen area. One is going to be a 12-volt cigarette lighter style receptacle. The other is going to be a couple USBs for any 12-volt kitchen appliances, and then any USB-driven chargers or appliances as well. Light switch here is just going to control the lights here in the kitchen area. And then we have your thermostat here above that. On this slider here, we have cool, fan, off, and heat. Of course, all the way to the left is going to be the air conditioner. And then we have your temperature slider here. We also have your fan setting here. So if we want that fan to run indefinitely, no matter what the thermostat hits, then we're going to keep that on the right side of that switch. If we want to function on the auto side of it, where it reaches the temperature and then kicks off, we're going to slide that to the left, and then you have lower high settings within that setting. Fan, again, is just going to be a fan with no compressor, no conditioned air, nothing like that. And then the next one's going to be off. And then finally, all the way to the right is going to be the heater. If we slide that all the way to the right, that furnace is going to kick on. 16 seconds after that, it's actually going to ignite. By that 30-second mark, it's producing noticeable heat. More often than not, you can smell it before you can feel it. So they do put a small scent, very much like lighting the furnace in your house for the first time in the year. Refrigerator is going to be, you'll come to it, it'll be in the off position. You go ahead and turn it on. Once it boots up, it's going to display the current mode of operation. If you want to change that mode, you can go ahead and push this button here, which is to the right of the on-off power switch. If you push it once, it's going to display the current mode. You hit it again, that's going to take you through the modes. So if we're looking at this drop here, that is liquid propane gas. And if we hit it again, that's going to take us into auto mode. On auto mode, it defaults to AC voltage. If it doesn't find AC voltage, it's going to automatically start lighting on gas. Next mode is going to be standalone AC voltage with no auto switch over to gas. And then we are back to gas if we hit that one more time. Temperature here, the more snowflakes you see, the colder it is. Door handles for the refrigerator are going to be on the top. For the freezer, it's going to be on the bottom. So, as you can see, nice and cold in there. Down below here, we have your fuse panel breaker box. Everything there on the right of that box is going to be your light switch style breakers, just like at home. Everything there on the left is going to be your 12-volt automotive blade style fuses. Functions should be labeled there on the door. Of course, not a bad idea to keep a variety pack of fuses with the unit in the event that you would need to change any of those out. And then right beside that, we do have a propane gas detector. Again, functions very much like a smoke alarm. Will illuminate what it is sensing with a series of lights, and does have a test button on it. Of course, anytime you plan on taking the unit out, you want to test any of this safety equipment. Bunk beds, nothing too terribly much to speak of there with the bunk beds. Of course, we saw the access to the underside of that compartment there on the outside when we were initially looking at that, but this is of course what we were seeing from the outside. And then again, nothing really too terribly much to speak of. You do have USBs and lights in each bunk. And switch there. Switch for the bottom one is right there on the fixture. Coming here into the bathroom, we have your main GFI reset here. That is because all the receptacles are on the same circuit. If one of them gets overloaded, this is going to be your reset point there. We have a secondary water pump switch, so if you are in the restroom here and you need to turn on that water pump, you don't have to go all the way to the front of the camper to do so. You can turn it on right here. Light switch here, on off. And then we have your secondary max air fan with a slightly less functional controller, but you still have some of those same buttons as that you found on the other side, and it is an electric fan. So we can still open it. We still have multiple fan speeds. We have a vent open, vent closed, fan off. So very limited controls, but still more than you're going to generally see in a bathroom exhaust fan. Pedal flush here on the toilet. It'll be a light press to fill up the bowl, full press to flush. Nothing too crazy there. We also have on-off here on the shower head. You'll find yourself, even with that 10-gallon water heater, probably taking a Navy or military style shower, so you can turn that water on and off. Positionable shower curtain, so when you're not taking a shower, you can fold it towards the inside. Of course, when you are utilizing the shower, you'll want it on the outside. Lastly, we have your low point drain access panel here underneath the tub. What that is for is, again, kind of goes in conjunction with the winterization process or just good general maintenance. Anytime the unit is in storage for more than 7 days, we are going to want to drain those with the valves on those lines. So those transitions through the floor, just open up the valves. That's going to drain the point A to point B plumbing and you'll need to do so whether you're winterizing the unit or, again, it's going to be in storage for more than 7 days. And that is just about everything here on the inside of the camper. If you do have any other questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We'd be happy to walk you through any of this stuff further over the phone in the event that you need it. Thank you very much.